What's up, everyone? Good morning, and welcome to Shaw Local's Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors, along with Sean Hammond, here to get you ready. Sean, man, I can't really believe it. It's actually, it's week 10 already. It's kind of flying by.
Oh, it's absolutely flying by. I don't know where the season's going, but it's moving along quickly. It's funny how once we get into the thick of it, that seems to happen.
Yeah, and here we are 10 weeks in or going into week 10, and things have really transformed in Chicago Bears world, right? Like we're going into this game and good friend Mike B already in the chat this morning would take the over and over. It's one of those games this weekend, Bears Detroit Lions, where it feels right for a lot of points to be scored on Sunday at Soldier Field.
Yeah, neither of these defenses can really seem to stop anybody, and the Lions in particular. I mean, they're dead last in yards per game, and I forget exactly, but they're right around 30th, both against the run and the pass. So teams are doing it every which way. They're just giving up all kinds of points, and I would expect this Bears offense that has been rolling for a few weeks to just keep on doing it.
We're going to talk a lot about this game and where the Bears are at. But I had mentioned to Sean going into this before we jumped on air here was I was looking at the Detroit line depth chart, and for any criticisms of Ryan Poles and the the path in which the Bears decided to embark on this rebuild under Ryan Poles, at least you feel like there's a plan, even if you disagree with it. Like you felt like there was a plan in place by this organization. Looking at the Detroit line depth chart, I have no idea what they're trying to accomplish, Sean. Like they're young on defense. They're starting four rookies, but like there's not a lot of emerging talent over the last couple of years. Like they drafted like Jeff Okudah, they took in the first round at cornerback a couple of years ago, has not panned out. Like you look at the offensive side of the ball, like Amon St. Brown, nice find, right? Like a decent combination in Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. Whenever Swift's been able to stay on the field, like they haven't figured out the quarterback position. Like I don't know what the Detroit Lions are trying to do over the next several years.
Kyle, I'm thinking about our old friend in the chat who was the Lions fan, and if he was still around, he would be ripping into you right now. Anybody who's been listening on the YouTube channel for a while with us will know who I'm talking about. But it feels like they are still in that collect talent mode, regardless of what position. They're getting these high draft picks, multiple first round picks in some instances, and they're just saying, let's get the best player available and we'll figure it out along the way, figure out these positions. And, there's good things and bad things about that approach. I think in a lot of ways, that's a good way to approach this when you're really rebuilding from the bottom up. But you mentioned it, you touched on it, they're going to have to take a swing at quarterback eventually. And that's really going to define what this team is, because that quarterback position can paper over a lot of things if you get that right. And
we're seeing that in Chicago right now, right?
Yeah. So, they're going to have to take a swing eventually, whether that's, drafting somebody high, which I think in their case, that's probably the route they go, or whether that's trying to find a veteran in the free agency route.
Well, it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's always difficult when you don't have the quarterback in place to try and do a rebuild. But I mean, they've missed on talent, that they've tried to accumulate here over these last several drafts. Like for every hit, like Penei Sewell's look great, right? Like you have a lot of guys that aren't hitting. Like I said, I mentioned Jeff Okudah. I'm not, of course, going to go ahead and cross off Jameson. Now I'm blanking on the name. Yeah, Jameson Williams, right? The wide receiver. Yeah, that was coming off the torn ACL. So it's hard to read into that too much, but it just things don't seem to be trending in the right direction for Detroit.
I will say I do feel like Jeff Okudah has played better this year. I know he was hurt. Obviously, he was hurt last year, and you didn't really get to see him more than one game on the field. But he's done a lot better than he did his rookie season. It's hard, though, to when you only have one decent cornerback, it really doesn't matter because the teams are just going to attack the other guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, where do you want to start with this, Sean? Like, when you're looking at this matchup between the Bears and Lions, like where do you think? Let's start with where do you think the Bears have the best advantage?
Where do the Bears have the best advantage? I mean, they can run the ball against anybody, and they're going to be able to run the football against the Lions, whether that's David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, or Justin Fields, or some combination of the three of them, as it's been in recent weeks. And I think they're going to continue to lean on that. They don't necessarily have to come out here slinging the football. And really, if you look at Justin's game last week against Miami, it was really, I know he had some really nice throws in that game, but it wasn't like they were throwing it like crazy. He was tucking the ball and running, and that's kind of been their bread and butter the last few weeks. And I think they're going to stick with that. Certainly that puts a lot on Justin to read the defense and see what's coming at him and decide when to scramble, when to stay in the pocket. But I think he's done a really good job with those decisions, a lot better than what we had seen last year as a rookie.
We, of course, appreciate everyone who does join us live, usually on Mondays and Friday mornings at 9:30. Sometimes we have to adjust based on travel, particularly if the Bears have been on the road. But if you do like to join us, 9:30, typically, like I said, Mondays and Friday morning. If you jump into the YouTube chat, you can throw your questions in there. We really do appreciate anyone that joins on YouTube. It helps us kind of guide the show, know what you guys want to talk about, make this a lot easier overall. And, of course, if you're in the YouTube chat, give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe. It helps people find the show. Outside of that, follow us on Twitter at Bears_Insider. You can find all of our content at shawlocal.com. You can follow Sean and I on Twitter as well. Sean at Shaw_Hammond and at Kyle Nabors and Sean. We talk about the Bears being able to rely on their run game. I am interested to see how the passing game progresses here over the second half of the season. When you're looking at, you've had now 3 touchdowns out of Cole Kmet these last 2 weeks. You've seen, or you made a trade for Chase Claypool. You're trying to figure out what you have in there. Obviously, we expect him to take another step forward in terms of the snap count this week. I think we're going to see the Bears. Listen, I think, the Bears are going to do whatever they have to win football games. But it's going to be interesting to see how they balance, that progression of making sure Justin Fields has the proper progression over the next, 7 games or so and trying to win football games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in talking with Luke Getsy every week and hearing, his press conference every Thursday, that really is the big focus for these guys is they look at each game individually and how can they attack this defense that they have coming up? And that's really the focus. I know it's, they take a big picture look during that 11-day layoff and they made some adjustments, but when you're in the thick of it, when you're going week to week and you got games every Sunday, they're looking for the best way to exploit this defense coming up here. That being said, I do expect them to sort of lean into what Justin's been doing lately, but I don't really think they're going to come out throwing the ball a ton, any more than they've needed to I almost said to win the last couple of games. They didn't win the last couple of games, but they were at least moving the football and scoring points.
Adolfo, I just want to quickly ask for a Hub update. Hub is doing well. I don't want to get anything too specific. I haven't had a chance to catch up with Arthur lately, his son, so I don't want to say anything out of bounds or anything that is incorrect, guys. Like I said, doing well, but nothing terribly specific. I'll try and get an update for you over the weekend, and maybe we can discuss a little bit more next week. Sorry, Sean. Now I got distracted when I saw that. I wanted to make sure to address that.
Yeah, no, we definitely miss Hub. To piggyback off of what you were saying earlier too, I think one thing to watch in this game, which isn't necessarily about the matchup, but just I want to see more from Chase Claypool. I mean, he got a fair number of snaps, 25 or 6 or something, but we want to see him more involved, and I think that's going to be the case. I think that we're going to see that snap count go up, certainly as he gets more comfortable with this offense, and hopefully that's going to mean his production in the passing game is going to go up. And I think this will be our first chance to really see what this offense looks like with him and Darnell Mooney, on two solid options for Justin, whereas last week he was still sort of getting his feet wet.
Rick says Fields over 200 passing yards. I mean, this certainly sets up as a matchup where Justin Fields should be able to surpass 200 passing yards. There's a couple questions there. Is one, does he need to even against this defense? Because like I mean, this is the defense where if the Bears want to run the ball, they're going to be able to run the ball against Detroit. So I'm not sure if they need to. The other kind of question there is, will the Bears wide receivers do enough to help him get to 200 yards? I mean, what did he finish 123 last week, Sean? Right?
Yeah, 123. I got it up right now. Yeah.
And I mean, and he played obviously really well, and the run game was working, and he was doing great in terms of that. But like, there's probably several instances there. I mean, let's say the Chase Claypool ball is caught, or the Equanimity of St. Brown drop. I mean, you're already there looking at like 145 to 150, right? Yeah, I mean, I would think 200 yards is certainly an attainable goal for an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. We talk about whether Justin's going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, 200 yards is not exactly in the NFL. That's nothing, But we're talking about a guy who his season high is 208 passing yards. So certainly, I could see him throwing for that in this game because this Lions defense is a little bit leaky on the back end, and you look at what they were doing last week. When Justin's been running the ball, Luke Getsy said it this week too. Like, those were pass plays. He had the option to throw it on those plays, and he saw something better and he took it and ran, and that's great. But maybe in a perfect world, he's throwing the football on some of those calls.
Yeah. Mike B says, I actually think they do throw it around a lot more here. Drops have plagued Justin in the last month, and the infusion of Claypool will lead to big plays. And then when you say like Justin Fields with a season high of 208 yards, that feels low. Obviously, it is low, but like
Right.
even in the context of like thinking back on the season, that feels low. And like I didn't think like Justin had a 300-yard game, but I thought there was probably a game where he got a little closer up to 250, and that's just I mean, Mike's right. Like the drops have really plagued the Bears offense. He's got to get a little more help. And this is the perfect defense, really, to do it again. Alan had asked this question. Alan Dunlap, how does the Bears D match up against the Lions offense? I'm sorry, I'm switching sides here. I misread that question. How does the Bears D match up against the Lions offense? We can hit this. The Lions seem to have a lot of injuries, and they traded their tight end one, referring to, obviously, TJ Hawkinson now with the Minnesota Vikings, Sean.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Lions have been pretty good on offense, and I know a lot of that was, they were really rolling those first couple of weeks, and it hasn't quite been as easy the last few weeks. But the one thing that stands out to me when I look at the numbers is they've done a good job protecting the quarterback. They're fourth in sack rate, or they have the fourth best sack rate among offenses, and that's going to be a real challenge for the Bears defensive front, because as we know, they haven't been able to get pressure at all these last couple games and really all season. So if you're not pressuring Jared Goff, he can beat you if he, has time and doesn't make a boneheaded mistake, which obviously those are two different things. But you want to pressure this guy, and the Lions have done a really good job of avoiding that pressure. And so that's an area to watch in this game. Certainly, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a really good receiver. He's having a great second year, and Josh Reynolds is their other receiver on the other side, and he's been a little bit banged up. We don't know exactly what his status is going to be going into this game. But it's really hard when you only, if Josh Reynolds can't go and you only got one guy, that's going to make it really tough on this Lions passing game, especially without your tight end.
Yeah, I mean, the offense has certainly slowed down for Detroit since the beginning of the year. I wanted to throw this question, or this link, a story we have up on ShawLocal.com right now about the Bears defense, and Alan Williams admitting yesterday that he's got to get more creative with the defensive play calling. And the other thing that I kind of found interesting in the story from John Dietz yesterday was talking about, like, I believe it was Nick Morrow was quoted in there. I'm trying to read back through it now.
He was.
And Morrow talking about like trying to change defenses and get guys in, and how difficult that can be when you're talking about really young, inexperienced players all over the defense, and trying to get guys changed out and into a secondary defense can be pretty challenging when you're talking about young guys, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at young guys all across the board. That's on the defensive line, that's at linebacker, that's on the back end, and it's tough, especially like Jack Sanborn. That was really his first real chance to play. I think he played like 88 or something percent of snaps, and when you're in there for the first time, that's going to be tough, and teams are going to pick on guys like that. They're going to see that and say, let's go after this guy who doesn't have much experience, and hopefully that eases up. Hopefully the game slows down a little bit for him as he gets more experience. Looking at that linebacker spot too, Matt Adams is back at practice, and he's a guy who could be back for you in the next couple of weeks. I know he didn't play like a ton of defensive snaps before his injury, but I could certainly see that number going up just because he has experience. But yeah, I mean, it's tough with this defense right now. Alan Williams is in a difficult spot, and I really don't envy him having to figure this out without two of your captains, Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn. That's a really tough situation to be thrust into.
I mean, yeah, and there's no getting around it. The Bears just do not have enough talent in the front seven right now. And you can for all the young talent in that secondary, like there's only a certain amount of time you can ask those guys to be able to contain wide receivers. And I mean, the Bears got to have to find ways to get more pressure, or even against a team like Detroit, where they have invested pretty heavily in the offensive line. While the Detroit Lions certainly have their issues, Jared Goff certainly has his issues. If you're not able to get any pressure on them, like they're going to be able to move the ball. Particularly because the other part here is when you combine that with the fact that your run defense is also really poor. You can't stop the run. You can't get pressure on quarterbacks. Even a team that is struggling like the Detroit Lions a little bit more than they had at the beginning of the year is going to move the ball in that situation, Sean.
Yeah, and I was talking with our friend John Dietz before he wrote that story. We were just talking about this earlier in the week, and really leading up to that Dolphins game is they gotta get creative and throw some blitzes in there, and really they didn't do that against the Dolphins. They were content to sit in there to rush for, and you saw the way that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were able to just take advantage of their zones in the back end and find those soft spots. And against two really good receivers, they're going to eat you up doing that. And, I don't know that obviously the Lions are a totally different team and they don't have the receiving talent that the Dolphins do. But yeah, you got to get a little bit creative here and there. And I think Alan Williams knows that. He's done that. We've seen, at times on third down this season, he's been really aggressive, and you'd like to see that. And I think we will see that more, just because he knows what's successful and what's not for his defense, and he's seen the success they had. I think I'm thinking particularly that Patriots game, and there was one other game before that where they were blitzing a lot on third down, and they were success. It might have been Houston. I can't remember exactly, but they've had success doing that.
They have. Mike said the Bears D has no choice but to blitz more, and I'll be very disappointed if they don't. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Like you have nothing to lose, right? With this defense, we know that if you don't bring pressure, it's not going to work. I mean, we got a large enough sample size now. I think we know that changing personnel is not going to make a huge amount of difference. I don't think. So you don't expect to win anyway. This is a team that's rebuilding. You might as well start trying to some of these young kids that you do want to see how they fit in on your roster is start building on a little bit, start calling a little bit more advanced plays. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Your team, you're not really stopping anyone anyway. It's kind of the way I would look at it, I would think.
Yeah, I would like, that's a good point, Kyle. And you might as well get some of these young guys in there. When I hear that, the one guy I'm circling is Dominique Robinson. Why not up his snap count a little bit and give him some more chances just to show what he can do? I know he's a young guy and, he's still learning out there. He's fairly new to the position, but, what's the harm in putting him out there and getting some more reps and really building towards that future? Because you're right. Any wins right now are just like extra credit. You're just like, great, that's awesome. We won this game. You really want to bring those young guys along. That should be the focus.
Rick asked, injury update for this week. Any concerns of Jalen and Tevin being added to the injury list, Sean?
Yeah, that was a little weird. Neither of those guys were on the Wednesday injury report, and then Thursday they popped up for the first time this week. Tevin was a hip, and Jalen was an oblique. They were both limited. Because they were limited, I wouldn't be too worried. I think there's probably a chance they'll be full participants on Friday. We'll have to wait and see on that. I wouldn't be too worried. I would be a little bit more concerned about El-Kadin Muhammad and Kindle Vildor, who have yet to practice this week. If you're not out there at all, that's a bad sign. And obviously, if Muhammad, I know Muhammad hasn't been like the most productive guy at his position, but he plays a lot of snaps. And if he's not able to go, that probably means you're pulling somebody up from the practice squad too. So they could be in a little bit of a bind there at that spot.
Yeah, who would be the fill-in for Al-Kadin Muhammad if he was to miss?
I mean, so the only guys, the only defensive ends currently on the roster are Muhammad, Travis Gibson, Dominique Robinson, and Kingsley Jonathan. So you're looking at more snaps for Robinson and Kingsley Jonathan. I'd have to look at the practice squad. I don't even know who the next man up would be at that edge rusher spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Let's see here. I'm going to pull this question up from Timothy or the comment. I think this is an audition for the front seven to see who will fit the D going forward. Yeah, Tim. That's exactly what I'm saying. You got to find out which of these kids can play within your system. And I think trying to keep it vanilla and saying, well, this is what we want to run. We want to get home with our front four doesn't really do yourself enough service there. Like, you might as well, you can't get home with four. These kids aren't to that point. They're not talented enough. You don't have the personnel. Start putting them in situations where it might be a little more outside their comfort zone. See how they react is the way I would view it. Particularly now, like where if you expect to be able to put some points on the board like the Bears have been doing, then, if you're giving up points, you're giving up points, I guess. Right, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to give up points. They're going to give up points. They're giving up points the last 2 weeks, and it's been.
They're going to give up a lot of points. Yeah.
Yeah. Just following up. It looks like Jerry Green on the practice squad is maybe their next best defensive end.
Who?
Jerry Green. So do with that what you will.
I'm not gonna lie. I know a lot of football names, and Jerry Green is not triggering any bells.
Well, he's played for like 7 teams, so
okay,
that tells you something. 2019 6th round pick of the Colts, so he does have experience in the system, at least a little bit. Yeah, he was there in 2019 and 2020.
Rick, you just popped a bunch of names into the chat. You're gonna have to let me know.
Yeah, that looks like the practice squad guys.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I'm looking at the guys listed at defensive line are Jerry Green, Jalen Holmes, and I skipped over one here, Trevon Coley. And I think Coley and Holmes are more of defensive tackles. So I'm guessing Jerry Green is probably the guy you would bring up.
Whatever happened to Charles Snowden? I just thought of that. What?
Yeah, he didn't make the roster. I don't know. I'm sure he's on the practice squad somewhere, but okay. I'm not sure.
So yeah, sorry, Rick. It formatted really weird on my end or on our end. So like when it came, it's like OL Nathan Peterman like ran together there. So I started getting confused of what was going with what there.
It looks like Snowden is on the Buccaneers practice squad.
Is he? That's where he ended up. I wasn't sure. Alan Dunlap says the second half of Bears' schedule is tough. 2 Lions game may be only shot at win, but I have hope for 23-24. It's kind of funny Alan says that because, I mean, I look at this Bears schedule over the next. I mean, it certainly gets tough at the end. Like those last 4 games. I mean, you're looking at Buffalo. Although if Josh Allen were this UCL type thing to be worse than where he was out for the rest of the year, I mean the Bears clearly are still a worse team than the Buffalo Bills, even if Josh Allen's out. But like that Buffalo Bills team looks a lot different if Case Keenum is your quarterback instead of Josh Allen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's still kind of that's one of the big storylines this week is just across the NFL is they're being very shy about what they want to say. And I don't know if this is going to be a week-to-week thing. I don't know if this is obviously if you're a baseball pitcher and you have a UCL injury, that's season ending. But quarterbacks are a little bit different, and I don't know the mechanics of whether or not you can actually throw the football with that injury.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, I'm not saying I'm not predicting this is going to happen either, but like, if the Bears won three of the four of their next four games to get to 6-7, I absolutely would not be shocked at that. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they won all four games. Like, I don't think that's going to be the case. Like, I think probably best case scenario is 2-2, and I wouldn't be surprised if they went 1-3. Like, let's not kid ourselves. This is still one of the worst rosters. But what I'm saying is, I was actually texting Mike last night, and I see him throw this into the chat. When you see Atlanta last night, Bears absolutely can take them down. I made a comment last night about could the Bears win the NFC South, and like you look at that Atlanta, I mean, like it's a horrific division, and the thing
absolutely.
is, we talk about when you get a quarterback, how much it papers over. Like Tom Brady is washed, like it's bad. Carolina is a disaster. Atlanta, Marcus Mariota is a disaster. Like New Orleans is out there throwing out Andy Dalton because they can't trust Jameis Winston not to give games away. So, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, the NFC sucks, is what I'm saying in particular. And the NFL, the NFL is just really mediocre most of the time. Like, you have a few very elite teams, and then a bunch of just in the middle and suck. Like, it's just a bunch of mediocre and suck is what the NFL is a lot of time. So, like, you get a scenario where the Bears are playing better. Like, yeah, they could beat Detroit. They could certainly beat that Atlanta team. You're talking about a Jets team that just beat Buffalo. But, like, we talked about, I think, on Monday a little bit. Like, the narrative in New York right now is that Zach Wilson is a bust. Like, that is a paper tiger in the New York Jets. And then you have the Green Bay Packers at the end of that. And the Packers have looked terrible as well. So, like, yeah, this is a bad Bears team. And they probably will lose 3 of the 4 games. But, like, if they won 3 of the 4, it wouldn't shock me, and it doesn't mean that they're good. It just means that they're in the blob of mediocre.
No, it's, this definitely feels to me like one of those years or one of those stretches too, down these last 2 months of the season where the Bears are probably going to beat a team that they shouldn't, and they're probably going to lose to a team that they shouldn't. And, it's just that the NFL, you're right, Kyle. I mean, you got the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Eagles are really the only teams right now that look like they are on that elite level. And then you got a lot of teams in the middle fighting for those other spots. And I know you and I aren't sold on the Vikings. I know they have that great record at this point, but they have a lot to prove. And actually they got the Bills this week, don't they? That's a big one for them. I think they do.
I think so. But again, like, how much can you read into that if Josh Allen
doesn't play?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's no reason they can't beat the Lions this week. They can't beat the Falcons next week. I know the Jets are hot, but I look at that as kind of a toss-up game. And honestly, I'm kind of looking at that Packers game at home, at Soldier Field. The Packers right now on a big losing streak. I look at that as kind of a toss-up too. I can't believe I'm saying that, but
I know it's just, you look at the way this season is developing. I mean, the NFC in particular stinks. I mean, there's just not really any way around it. I mean, Philly, I'm pretty sure Philly's good. Like Minnesota, yeah, maybe your second best team. Dallas, I think, is pretty good. The NFC West, not very good.
No, they haven't been.
The NFC South, obviously bad. Like, it's.
We could really see. Let's assume the Eagles get to the NFC Championship game, which obviously is a big assumption that anybody gets there, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's some team that surprises us and gets there and faces them at an NFC Championship game, Kyle.
No, I mean, if San Francisco finally put it together, like that would make a lot of sense. But I really don't know how this is going to play out in terms of like behind Philly. Anyone in the chat, by the way, give us your thoughts. I'm interested. Like, are people sitting here thinking that I'm crazy saying the Bears could win 3 of their next 4 games? Or I know the good friend Mike B is in here with Bears are winning 3 of the next 4. Boom. Or even 4 in a row coming.
Oh, he upgraded it already.
Yeah. See, he's already got himself on board there. But like, man, it would be interesting to see if we got to the end of going into that Bears bye week, if the Bears were sitting at 6-7, what what the tenor would be around Chicago, because that probably means the Bears are playing well, but also because of the way the NFC is developing. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that we go into Detroit. I mean, go into December or coming out of that bye in mid-December with the Bears still very much in the playoff picture somehow.
Yeah, and you're right. That's just the nature of the NFC right now. I mean, there's the seventh seed right now is sitting at 4-4. So if you're around 500, you're going to be in this race.
Who is the seventh seed right now?
Right now, it's San Francisco at 4-4. Washington is 8th at 4-5. Atlanta is 9th at 4-6.
How did the Bears lose to Washington?
Yeah, that game, man. It's that red zone. They were moving the ball in that game. They just couldn't score.
Yeah, that's very true. The red zone was bad.
That was almost it was bad, but it was also like probably an outlier when you look at the season as a whole. They haven't been that bad in the red zone overall.
My God, and we have the tiebreak over San Francisco too. Yeah, point. That is. I really don't think that we're going to be like expecting the Bears to win 3 of 4. Like, it's still a bad roster, right? Like, a lot of things need to go right, and there's a good chance they go out and lose to Detroit this week, and things are smacked right back down to reality.
Yeah,
but it's interesting to see that just how things have developed here.
Yeah, we certainly should not be chalking these up as, even just this week. This is a Lions team that can score the football, and your defense is practically non-existent. So, it's going to come down to whether the Bears can outscore these teams if they're going to go on a run like that. And, I think Bears fans can be optimistic that their offense can put up some points, but, that's going to be a lot to put on Justin Fields' shoulders down the stretch of the season. And it's probably not going to work out every week.
All right. Well, we're at about 30 minutes here, Sean. Chat is slowing down this morning, so maybe we'll go ahead and wrap it up here pretty soon. If we haven't hit anything you guys want to discuss, throw that into the chat quickly for us. Help us kind of steer it along here, because it's weird, because we have a lot of weeks where there's a lot of intrigue, a lot of things we need to figure out going into a game. But I feel like we know the players here. There's not a lot of injury situations we're paying attention to. Like we said, we mentioned Tevin Jenkins and Jalen Johnson. We expect both of those guys to play. Overall, it's weird. I think we know how this game should play out, how we expect it to play out. And now it's kind of just sitting back and waiting, right?
Well, yeah, it's been one of those weeks where, outside of the Justin Fields talk, you get past that, and it doesn't feel like there's a ton to talk about. We were talking about or just some of the, looking at the defense and special teams, of course, but everyone wants to talk about Justin, and that's been a really exciting week for Chicago to have a quarterback who's doing what he's doing. But yeah, and I think this Lions Bears matchup is maybe not one a lot of people get excited about. You're talking about two losing teams with bad records that, yeah, they can put up some points, but are they really going anywhere? Yeah, I don't know if there's that same juice as there was last week when you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle coming into town.
Yeah, probably not, but I think there should be. I think
the true NFL fans are, and certainly the people who pay attention to the NFC North are interested about this matchup.
Yeah, I think they're interested. I think anyone who's a fantasy football fan, I think is paying a lot of attention to this game. I've been listening to some fantasy football buzz this week, and a lot of talk of this game, because they know that a lot of points are going to be scored. I'm not sure where the over-under is sitting. I haven't looked lately. I know it opened at 48.5. I would be a bit surprised if that wasn't bet up to 49 or 49.5 at this point. And even then, I'll be taking the. I don't sports bet, but if I was a sports gambler, I would certainly be pounding the over there. John, I know seeing your prediction that you sent over that you'll also be that's actually makes me. You had a really high score, 42-31 or something like that, predicted for the Dolphins and Bears.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty bold. And then we got we got pretty quickly into that game, and I was like, nah, Sean was right.
Well, it's funny because I anybody who follows us probably sees our live updates page at shawlocal.com on game days. And I update that after every score. And it felt like there was hardly a chance to catch my breath in that game. They were just going back and forth the whole game long. And yeah, I mean, I expect a lot of points in this one too. I know it's going to be a little bit chillier, looking like around 40 degrees, but it's going to be dry and sunny, and that's ripe for scoring points.
Tim now jumped into the chat with, do you think Velus will play or be a healthy scratch again? Sean, what do you think?
I'm guessing he's going to be a healthy scratch again, just because I don't think anything's really changed. Unless he can show that he can hold on to the football on punt return, I don't really see him being out there. Now, the interesting question could become, Byron Pringle's coming back, so they're going to have 7 receivers. They have to make room for Matt Adams at some point before he comes back in the next couple of weeks. Would they potentially cut a receiver? If Dante Pettis might be a guy you're looking at as potentially cutting, and then you're going to need a punt returner. And obviously Velus has to be in that conversation too, but I don't think they want to cut him. They drafted him pretty high for a reason. So maybe down the line they could need a punt returner and throw him back in that spot. But I don't think, unless they need him at that spot or unless they want to give him another shot, I don't see why he would be dressing, because he's not really doing much for you on offense.
So you said Dante Pettis would probably be the guy cut there. Why him over Equanimous St. Brown? Like, why do you think Dante Pettis is closer to maybe that bubble line?
I think you could argue for EQ as well. I would say because St. Brown is just used more in the offense. They really like his blocking, which I know is a thing that most people don't really care about, but NFL coaches do care about that. And even though he had a bad drop, I mean, he's been a big part of your offense, at least not necessarily catches wise, but just in game planning and scheme wise, he's been a big part of your offense more than I would say Dante Pettis has. I know Pettis has caught some nice balls. He had that big touchdown in week 1, but I think the saving grace for Pettis right now is that he's your punt returner, and he's done an all right job at that.
That's where I was going to go, and I'll be completely honest. I haven't looked that closely to see the value or each one of those guys in terms of Dante Pettis and Equanimous St. Brown that they add to special teams. Obviously, I know Dante Pettis is involved in the return game quite a bit. Not sure how involved Equanimous St. Brown is, considering he's near the bottom of the roster. Usually those are the type of guys that are pretty involved in like kick return and punt return or punt coverage units. Can't say that I've looked that close, though, but that's another factor in terms of determining who gets those final roster spots.
And Pringle is a guy who has returned balls in the past. So maybe when you bring him back, you just cut Dante Pettis and basically make a 1-for-1 trade there. I don't know. I don't know how they're approaching this, but they obviously have when Pringle comes back, which I think is going to be today, they have a spot open for him. You're going to have 7 receivers on your roster, and not a lot of NFL teams carry 7 receivers for very long.
No, yeah, they made a roster move last night. Can you refresh my memory on what that was? They waived
Jake Tonjes, the tight end / fullback. He was an undrafted rookie who made the roster out of training camp. I would expect he might be back on the practice squad, but yeah, that cut them down to 52. And to me, that just signaled that Pringle's coming back, because Pringle has to come back this week, because this is the 3rd week he's been in his 21-day window. They either have to bring him back or shut him down for the year, once that 21-day window closes. So I expect he'll be activated either today or tomorrow.
All right, Sean, anything we haven't hit on you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I'm just excited for another game here at Soldier Field. Hopefully we get a lot more points again, and it's a fun one.
What's your prediction? I'll put you on the spot.
Oh here. Man, what did I send you? I can't remember what I sent you. I thought it was I'm picking the Bears to win. I like them at home. I just like that they've been scoring points. They've been scoring points a lot in 2 losses, and I think they're going to get over the hump this week against a not so great Lions team. I think I had like 34-31 or something. It was in the 30s again. I got another high score, but I think I had them winning by 3.
You know what? I think the Bears are going to win, and I think they're going to cover. I'm picking the Bears to win the game 37-27. I just like where this Bears offense is at. I think they're going to put a lot of points on the board this week. And I do have more question marks about the Detroit Lions offense. They had that hot start. I think they've slowed down some. While I don't think the Bears have the personnel to completely stop this Detroit Lions offense, I think they get enough stops. So, like I said, take the Bears to win, take the Bears to cover. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. Thank you, everyone who joined us in the chat this morning. We appreciate it. Again, 9:30 a.m. on Mondays and Fridays. Jump into the YouTube chat, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Really appreciate everyone who does that. Make sure to follow us at shawlocal.com. We'll have all of our preview content for Bears Lions coming to you over the next couple days. And for now, we're going to go ahead and sign off, though. For Sean Hammond, I am Kyle Nabors. Everyone enjoy the weekend. Enjoy a good weekend of NFL football. We will talk to you next week.